our speakers for this evening. You can see we have our three gentlemen there, the co-hosts of the Three Ugly Mugs podcast. We've got John J. Murray, Johnny B, and Matt Fernandez. And then, of course, And then we have the History Center's own director of our Touchton Math Library, Mr. Rodney Kite-Powell.
Woo! Yeah!
So I will turn
Fourth
the
ugly mug
program
for the
over.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you all so much for coming. And thank you guys for showing up for this. Somebody forgot their beer, it looks like. Or you just drank all your beer.
I drank it all.
Oh. It happens.
Like a big boy.
Matt had 3 beers and he ate 6 hot dogs before we started.
We told him no dessert unless you finish all your alcohol.
I also have a Rays shirt, but I pulled it out to wear today and found out the last time I wore it, I spilled salsa all over the front of it. So, here we are.
I'm glad you're prepped like Babe Ruth, apparently.
Yeah.
With the 3 beers and 6 hot dogs.
What a rookie fat guy. I keep a backup jersey just for that reason. So, yeah.
So as Amanda said, as you all know, we're talking baseball. And so, unbeknownst to these guys, we put together some photographs, which that's not the first photograph. That's actually something that we'd love for everybody to participate in. It's a safe QR code. We're not going to drain your Apple account if you click on it. But we are in the running for Tampa Bay Times Best of the Best Museum, 4 different categories within the museum genre. So at some point, either right now or at the end of the program, or just go on the St. Pete Times website or Tampa Bay Times website, and you can vote for it. So that's the one pitch that we'll do. Well, not the first pitch, I guess, the opening pitch. Guys,
Nice.
I know, right?
Smooth.
Dad joke. So
If everybody votes, it would be like a real relief pitch.
there you go.
All right, I'm going to go.
Go get some more beers. Okay, and that's us. And so, baseball. Starting off with some of the earliest baseball information we have here, again, the earliest baseball artifact that we have. In 1885, there was the first baseball team in Tampa, and they actually it was the Diamond Baseball Club. They actually were called the Tampa Diamonds, because baseball's played in a diamond. And it's a letter from the organization to an unknown person about being considered an honorary member of the Diamonds. Now, it's kind of like a form letter, though, so I think they may send it to everybody in Tampa to see if they wanted to join the team. We have actually a photograph of what we think was that very first team.
So they sent that to everyone in the city.
I don't know. They sent it to a lot of people. It was a printed letter, so it wasn't anything.
They all look malnourished.
I missed my chance.
Exactly.
Like they all have scurvy or something.
This was pre-buffet era. I like this.
Yeah, all these guys were like bricklayers in the day, and they
Look at those mustaches.
play baseball. But yeah, mustache is a good thing. But I think the thing about baseball, unlike say football or even hockey, the equipment is very much the same. Those same guys could take the bat and ball and even the catcher's mask and be pretty much recognizable and have the same stuff that you would need today, except for the ball itself, which was a dead ball. The ball was not nearly as lively until the early 1920s when they started what's called the live ball era. But other than that, the equipment was exactly the same.
Now, did they have home runs the same way, like over the fence and all that?
So funny you mentioned the fence. We got a few pictures later. They didn't have a fence oftentimes, and so you could Babe Ruth's longest home run, which we'll talk about it now, was supposed to be here in Tampa when he was a member of the Boston Red Sox during spring training, and it went 560 feet or whatever. But there was no fence, as Johnny B said. And so the ball just rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled, which is why it was such a long home run. And in theory, the outfielder could chase it down, and if the person was slow enough, they could actually throw the ball in before they would reach home plate.
Can I ask the difference between a dead ball and the live ball? What was
The composition of the ball itself, it was not nearly as lively. It wasn't cork inside. And so when you hit the ball, it didn't go nearly as far, basically. So hitting a home run was much more difficult back then.
I think it's interesting that they don't have baseball caps.
We see one cap, actually. There are 2 caps in the foreground.
Oh yeah, that's quite the same as what we have
Not
now.
quite the same, yeah, but very similar. And no smiles, exactly. Well,
Yeah, they don't seem happy to be playing.
No. Well, maybe.
They're making $2 a game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, they probably had just worked a 10-hour shift somewhere.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go play a
Yeah, well,
doubleheader.
most pro sports until probably the 70s or 80s, they all had like regular day jobs.
They
right?
had day jobs.
Yeah.
Not, I would say a little earlier than that, but certainly this time up into the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
You would have in summer jobs because they didn't pay.
It's kind of like
Excuse me,
comedians
winter
in
jobs.
modern times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You had to have a job. But when they weren't playing in the off season, they had to work. And then they also, when they were oftentimes in spring training, they didn't. The teams wouldn't pay for hotels, so they had to stay in people's houses.
It's exactly like being a comedian.
It really is. Yeah, that family in Ocala still can't
I've
get
done
over
that
what I did to the
several times.
bathroom. Yeah.
So this next shot's not a baseball player, but is our mayor back in the old days, D.B. McKay, and he's here because it was his idea to bring the very first team to train here in 1913. And so spring training had existed in Florida starting in the late 1800s, but it was very infrequent. And actually, it was the Philadelphia Athletics who started it in Jacksonville, but they had a terrible regular season that year, so they didn't come back for another 10 or 15 years. They went back to Jacksonville in 1910, and one of their star players got injured wrestling an alligator. And then he apparently had an affair with a young lady in Jacksonville, and it didn't end well, so he tried to kill himself. And so that led to also a bad season. And so the Athletics didn't go back to Jacksonville, but McKay was able to convince other teams to come to the Tampa Bay area.
Typical Florida vacation.
He was the original Florida man.
I know, exactly.
Like I say, you just explained like a normal weekend in Valrico. So.
Or Jacksonville, for that matter.
Yeah.
Now, McKay, is he related to Rich McKay?
No, so Rich McKay, who was, and John McKay, who was the first coach of the Bucks, unrelated McKays. This McKay was an old Tampa family. But he, McKay Bay, exactly.
That's why they could say throw McKay in the bay.
Well, that was where the rhyme came from. But that's a different McKay. But he guaranteed, it was the Chicago Cubs, and he guaranteed the Cubs could come here and train for basically no money at all, including $100 a day for each player. And that's a lot of money. So
back
they
then.
backed
That was
that.
big money,
You know,
yeah.
the city backed that because they really, really wanted to have tourism, and so they saw that as a way to get northern tourists to come here. And
Yeah, we're not even getting paid that much to be here right now.
It's true.
gotta renegotiate your contract.
I got 3 beers. I'm in the hole.
Go to Publix; it's cheaper. So this is Al Lopez, and he is the first. I know everybody. The first Tampa-born person to make it to Major League Baseball. He was born in Ybor City in 1908, and he made it to the big leagues at the age of 20 in 1928. Did the math for you, as a member of what was then called most commonly the Brooklyn Robins, but the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Brooklyn Dodgers team had a lot of different nicknames, but at this time their manager was a guy named Robinson, and so they were called the Robins. But they were called the Dodgers a little bit during that time too. Anyway, he's a catcher, as you can see here. And he was a pretty good catcher, but he turned out to be an even better manager. And we'll revisit Al in a little bit. But also born at the same time as Al was this guy, one of my favorite players. This is Manuel Curly Onis. So Curly and Al were good friends growing up here in Ybor City. And Curly was a good baseball player as well, played catcher. And he was good enough that he could get a job. He got a job with Tampa Electric Company, not because he was good at electricity, but he was good at baseball, and they wanted him for the company team. There were lots of company teams back then. The cigar factories had teams, the larger companies had teams, and sometimes they would basically hire these ringers to be employees, but they wanted them to play. Well, Curly was able to make it to the majors himself, and he played also for the Brooklyn Dodgers. It was his friend Al who got him the opportunity. He has the distinction of having one career major league at-bat, and he got a base hit. So he's got a 1,000 batting.
Best batting average in history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then he was sent back down to AAA, or whatever the equivalent was, AAA. And apparently Curly had a bit of a temper. And as a catcher, when he was catching, the umpire called a ball when he thought it was a strike for his pitcher, and so he got in an argument with the umpire, took his mask off, and actually hit the umpire in the head with his mask. And that was not looked fondly upon by baseball, and he never made it back to the majors.
I think if you grew up in Ybor City in 1908, that you were pretty much a maniac. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up in Seminole Heights in the 80s, and I'm still not right. Yeah.
So are they still the Diamonds at this point?
So no, he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
I want to buy his jersey.
Tampa,
That's why I'm asking.
I know. Well, so in the old Trop, and maybe but they fixed the Trop, there was a really the place to get like decent craft beer was on the lower concourse, and it was called Curly's. It was named after
Yeah.
him.
Okay. Wow. Didn't know that.
Yes, exactly. It's not Three Stooges Curly.
Also, the best
You
place to fight someone.
Yeah, exactly. You hit the bartender with your mask, you get a free beer.
I mean, that photo looks like he was smiling, and then he was like, "All right, hurry up."
Yeah, no, really.
And
This is it.
He's on the brink of
This is-
turning into Mask Curly
You,
right
you
there.
get you get one chance.
You can't see the bottle in his hand.
Yeah, he's holding a 24-ounce bottle of beer in his hand.
In a cigar box. Yeah. Old Curly.
Also born the same year, also growing up in Ybor City, is this guy. And this is Hipólito Arenas, the first black player to make it to the Negro Leagues in Tampa. So Al was the first player to make Major League Baseball, which was segregated at the time, of course. And Hipólito Arenas was the first Tampa person to make it to the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues were had a much looser structure than Major League Baseball. So he played for, gosh, it just fell out of my head. I think he played for the Philadelphia Stars. He also played for the Atlanta Black Crackers. He played for the
Black Crackers.
The
I have
Black
the jersey.
Crackers.
I have
I
the
was going to
jersey.
let that go right
No,
by.
no. That was one of the most popular teams.
I have the jersey at my house.
The Black Crackers.
I saw it pop up online, and I was like, "Yeah, I gotta buy that. Yeah, for sure." I grew up in Seminole Heights. I felt like I was one. Yes.
But there were several Tampa players, not surprising, that ended up playing for the Black Crackers because they were obviously close. It was the closest a Negro League team that was in the kind of upper echelon of the Negro Leagues. Jacksonville actually had a team in the minor league Negro League system, the Jacksonville Stars, that a lot of Tampa players played for as well. And then this guy, this is Bernardo Fernandez, kind of our last of our early Ybor City players. He also played in the Negro Leagues in the 1930s. I think he played for the Philadelphia Stars as well. Neither Hipólito or Bernardo had very long careers, a little longer than Curly. They made it more than one game, and they didn't assault anybody in the process. Cowards, you know. But Bernardo, after playing baseball, worked construction for the rest of his career because, again, they made hardly any money. Where Hipólito pretty much had his career in baseball. He was a manager and coach for the rest of his career. But this guy, looks like he just pitched 2 ends of a doubleheader. He looks exhausted.
He don't look happy.
No.
No, pretty miserable.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Diamonds. For the longest time, Tampa's minor league team was the Smokers, and that's what this is. And you can go on eBay and you can buy Smokers, either replica or sometimes you can find an original Smokers jersey, similar to your story.
I
had a Smokers jersey and I got mustard all over it at a Rays game.
I have a couple of their hats, and I actually wore them I wore it during the Zoom meeting, setting up this thing with with Rick and stuff. Yeah, so I love that history about Ybor City and everything else. And a lot of people, when they see the hat, they're like, "Oh yeah," they think it's like marijuana, but I'm like, "No, this is the cigar. Relax, you know. It's clearly a cigar in the logo, but." I love the history of Tampa and the cigar industry and all that, and the fact that they put that into the baseball team was really cool.
These guys look haggard. They look like they were paid in cigars.
Yeah. It looked like they smoked before the game.
Smoke as
Yeah,
many
exactly. They
cigars
probably
as you want.
Yeah. Well, cigar workers would get 10 cigars a day as addition to their pay, and so they could either smoke all 10 a day, which
When I was
a lot of them did.
That's what they brought home to their children for dinner.
Yeah, give me your kids. Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad would take me to a barber in Ybor City to get our hair cut, my brothers and I, and it was $3 for a haircut, and it was an old Cuban man, and he would have a cigar dangling out of his mouth while he's cutting your hair, and he wouldn't use water. He would lick his hand and part your, and there's this cloud of smoke around you, and I remember telling my dad, I go, "I think I have lung cancer." Yeah, but I grew up fine. Everything's great.
Yeah,
But
really. No ill effects, we can tell.
yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah.
And so Al Lopez played for the Smokers. Curly played for the Smokers. It was, again, segregation. So and it's funny because there's a picture I don't think I included, but the Cuban Club had a baseball team, and you could tell that they were a little more integrated. The complexions ranged a lot broader at that for that particular team, but that also was a club team and not a team in the system. So they played in what was now the Florida State League, and so they had to abide by the system as it was. And so, but you also didn't have some of the best players because there were a lot of Negro League players that could have played for the Smokers from an ability standpoint, but they were barred from doing so.
Could white dudes try out for the Negro Leagues, or was it segregated?
No, it was segregated both ways.
Okay.
And even the stadiums were sometimes segregated, But oftentimes the Negro League teams would play Latin teams, but oftentimes the white teams wouldn't want to play the Negro League teams
Because they would get
they
destroyed.
they were a little they were unsure of the outcome, and so they were.
That was my next question.
But they would sometimes do double headers where they would be the two, like where one city would try to travel to another city, and the two white teams from those cities would play each other, and the two black teams would play each other in the same stadium the same day.
Okay.
When I first started doing stand-up, I got booked on a BET tour, and I was the only white guy on the tour. And I gotta be honest, I wish it was still segregated at that time because it was brutal. Yeah, it was.
Sure.
They were very mean to me. Yeah. There was a lot of bullying going on, but man, I learned a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. Get tough quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost killed me.
Yeah. All right. So mentioning the outfit. So this is actually the baseball field that was at McFarland Park in West Tampa. And this is down the first base line, but you'll see they're just standing there. There is no fence. And so they're in foul territory, so they wouldn't interfere necessarily with the play. But there was no fence for the entire stadium other than the back and then, of course, the grandstand. So if a player hit a ball far, and it would just roll, and it would just roll. And they never added a fence to this, but you'll see subsequent pictures where they did eventually add fencing to Plant Field, which was at the University of Tampa, which is where Ruth hit that long home run. This diamond is unfortunately gone. It's roughly the location of where West Tampa Little League is now. So
I was going to ask. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
If you picture West Tampa Little League, which I think is on the McDill side of McFarland Park, that's roughly where the baseball diamond was. And there were a lot of incredible teams that would play there, so they would have minor league games there as well as at Plant Field, and then they would do all kinds of the club games again. The different social clubs, the power company, the cigar factories, all different groups.
Was there anything in the South Tampa area that wasn't HB Plant at that time? Because he was this big developer, right? So everything kind of like went through him, right? Like he was.
Well, he died pretty early and things, but
even Plant City, right?
Yeah, he founded Plant City, exactly. But there were a lot of things that weren't necessarily plant related, but that were important as far as the development of the city.
Right. My son went to Plant High School for a couple of years, and it was like everything around. And that's when I started doing the research. I go, oh, this guy was super rich and super powerful back in the day. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, very much so. And he also founded Port Tampa, which is a separate city from Tampa, and they had their own baseball teams, both white and black.
So what would happen? So without a fence here, what would happen if somebody hit a ball all the way to left field and it rolled towards the crowd? And then, like, a kid picked it up.
It was like starts running.
Yeah,
exactly.
He was like, I want this guy to score a home run, so I'm just taking this and I'm going home.
That's not how they talk. He'd be like, I got the ball, chum. Yeah, time to go.
Hey, look here, you. I'm going down the Plant. See, he went a different direction. I was going to ask, what if it smashed somebody in the face? Is that an automatic home run?
That would be a home run.
Okay,
you got to keep your head on. You got to keep your head on a swivel.
You better be paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so this is at Plant Field. And so this is more into the 1920s. So when Babe Ruth hit his home run, it was 1919, and that fence, which is where the palm trees are in right field, wasn't there. And so the ball he struck just kept rolling and rolling and rolling, which is why again it was measured at 560 feet.
Hit it all the way to St. Pete.
I know. So there was a huge, very popular evangelist that was in town the day that Ruth hit that home run, a guy named Billy Sunday. And he was a traveling evangelistic preacher, and they would do these big tent revivals. And he was going to do a revival that Sunday. I think the game was on Saturday. And so when the ball was finally retrieved, Babe Ruth signed it and gave it to Billy Sunday. And then Billy Sunday kept it, and I think he signed it, and the manager of the Red Sox signed it. And he kept it in his collection forever. The Plant Museum eventually acquired it. And so we'd wonder where that ball had been for a very, very long time.
Do we know what these buildings are in the background?
The way background is downtown Tampa.
Wow.
And then in the
immediate,
in the immediate background is the fairgrounds. That's where the fairgrounds were.
The original. Yeah.
I would say one of those has to be the Floridian, right? It's got to be.
If it's the late 20s, then that's the Floridian.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep. And so this is before the game starts. Of course, you can see the batting, the batting cage, but there was no protection for the pitcher. So if you're a BP pitcher, you had to be very careful not to take a line drive off the skull. And there actually are movie cameras in this picture too, so it'd be really interesting to see if we could track down that footage.
Wow.
Who knows if it still exists, but it's pretty cool to think that they were shooting footage there. This is probably the Washington Senators. That was the team that they trained in Tampa for a really long time.
That's the guy that Globetrotters beat every time?
that's the, oh man.
The Generals.
The Generals.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, I got you.
I know, thank you. All right. And so, speaking of celebrities and Babe Ruth, that's him. That is Babe Ruth.
There he is.
Third from the left. So Babe Ruth, during spring training, didn't really like spring training, particularly when he was with the Yankees. So he played because he was contractually obligated to, but he tried to do everything else other than play baseball that he could. So here he's pictured at Palmacia Country Club, where he loved to play golf. And he also loved to drink, and he loved to carouse. And there's lots of stories, particularly in St. Petersburg, when the Yankees trained in St. Petersburg, about all kinds of stories. In the 20s, during Prohibition, when Babe Ruth would show up at any number of speakeasies that were in the city. He was definitely, he had a body of a non-athlete.
Is he like 14 in that picture?
I know. he's probably 30.
The guy right to his left, that guy's about 85 years old, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to tell.
I think that's the manager of the Yankees.
Yeah, he just seems like a guy's like, I'm playing golf over here. Yeah.
He's definitely big for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see how much taller he is than those other guys. So yeah, but he's a big guy. One more Babe Ruth story. In our atrium, I'll go back to Babe Ruth. In our atrium, we have all these icons that depict different parts of our history, and Babe Ruth, because he had the longest home run, is depicted there. And the icons all have this kind of neon light-ish kind of movement to them. And so that when you see it from the park, you can see this movement. But the way we did the signs, we didn't make backs for them. So it's just basically the same image on the back side. So there was this reporter, when we first opened, who was standing on our upper balcony, and he looked at Babe Ruth, and he thought he had this great gotcha. And so he called me on, I guess it was Monday, and he said, I noticed an error in your museum. I said, okay, let's hear it. Very possible we could have made a mistake. He said, you made Babe Ruth right-handed. And I said, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we were careful about that. I said, nope, I looked at him, he's right-handed. And I thought about, well, where did you see him? Well, I was in my atrium, or I was in your atrium. I'm like, you need to see him from the other side, where he's left-handed. But because it's a mirror image in the back side, it makes him like he's right-handed.
Yeah.
So
That guy's an idiot.
I know, right?
He felt so stupid.
Where were you then? When I said, here, Matt wants to talk to you.
We'll send him to the Mirror Museum.
And so, again, mentioning the Negro Leagues, there were several different teams in Tampa. Just like companies, had white teams, they also had black teams. So Pepsi-Cola had the Pepsi-Cola Giants. And that's the team pictured here. Don't know where the picture was taken, either in East Tampa, possibly where the Belmont Heights Little League is today. Mm-hmm. That was a larger field for minor league teams. But it could have been taken in Port Tampa City as well, because there was a pretty big baseball field.
Is that
and they had
is that cheerleaders?
Exactly. Yeah. They good eye there. Yeah, they had their own cheerleaders. And it was feeding a kind of feeder to bigger Negro League, minor league teams, and even the major leagues for the Negro Leagues. There were several Tampa guys who played for the Giants who ended up playing for the Negro Leagues just before the war and after World War II.
Yeah, when I was growing up in Old Seminole Heights, Belmont Heights was where a lot of the kids in the neighborhood would go play, and it was like the elite, like Little League.
Yeah.
You're talking major league players came out of Belmont Heights, so you knew if they were going over there. Sometimes they would ride their bicycles 3 or 4 miles to play for Belmont Heights, and you knew that they were probably, at the very least, getting baseball scholarships.
Oh yeah. So between Belmont Heights and then Hillsborough, which was the
I went to Hillsborough also. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you had Dwight Gooden and.
Yeah, I actually
Chef
I played football with Carl Everett, who went on to play in the major leagues.
So Carl Everett, fun fact about him, do you know? The best fun fact.
He
about
never
Carl
wore
Everett?
deodorant in high school. Never.
I wouldn't call that a fun fact.
We knew him as Stinky Carl. I wouldn't say anything. He kicked my ass. Yeah.
So not only did he not believe in deodorant, he didn't believe in dinosaurs either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We never
Carl
talked.
Everett does not believe in dinosaurs.
I just blocked for him. That's all I did.
Yeah, dinosaurs.
Yeah, he was a running back in high school and very good. Yeah. He's very good.
Well, that's the thing too. Back in the old days, which isn't that old, you had so many of these athletes would play every sport.
Oh, they had to.
And so,
Yeah.
and also develop their bodies and develop their sense of play a lot better. You didn't have nearly as many surgeries on arms with pitchers because they also were quarterbacks or they were doing other things, playing basketball. So you had a more holistic kind of condition.
Right.
But now at 7, you're throwing a curveball. 10
Yeah,
times.
they didn't care about
Yeah,
protecting you back then. It was like you're the best athlete. You're
Yeah, you
playing
do it all.
everything.
Yeah.
And I remember when he got drafted out of high school, we didn't know how to comprehend that. You're like, wait a minute, so he's just going to the major leagues? Like,
Yeah.
he's a kid, you know? Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, like he made it pretty.
It was a
quick,
big
too.
deal. It was a big deal.
He,
It was
yeah,
awesome.
he was an amazing player. And again, that's just that feeder system between Beaumont Heights and Hillsborough in the majors.
Yeah,
There are
I mean, you had
so many players.
A lot of great players. Yeah.
Yeah. Another picture of the Smokers. A little bit later, this is the late '40s.
That's a cool jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just a great jersey.
Yeah.
And then now we get into this is actually the last of the kind of older stuff. This is Plant Field. Now this picture was taken in 1954, so this was the last season before Al Lopez Field opened in 1955. And
Is this the
so,
county fairgrounds?
no, this was the state fairgrounds, but at
The
UT.
state fairgrounds.
Yeah, but at UT. So my brother is a huge baseball fan, and he saw this picture, and he is convinced, and he's probably right, that the guy running from home to first is Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
And so this is the Dodgers,
He definitely played here.
and so he definitely played here. And so this is '54, so this is 7 years after breaking the color barrier. But there are only 2 black players in the Dodgers at this time. And he played this game because we know the date the picture was taken, so you can look back in the paper and see
Right,
the lines.
it's on the lineup, yeah.
Yep. And so it's probably Jackie Robinson, probably the only picture of Jackie Robinson playing baseball in Tampa. Now, one of the local Negro League players is a guy named Dirk Gibbons, and he made it to the majors in the in the Negro League system, but never made it to the majors in Major League Baseball. But he actually, in 1947, when Jackie Robinson played for the Dodgers here in Tampa, he actually had Jackie stay at his house because he wasn't allowed to stay anywhere else at the White Hotels. And he also, when they were at UT, they couldn't go in any of the buildings at UT. Neither Dirk nor Jackie. After Dirk retired, he got a job in the 60s or 70s at UT, and eventually he was the head of facilities. And so he was very fond of saying, when I first came here, they wouldn't let me in any room in the building. Now I have a key to every room in the building. So
He showed that.
So he'd made it.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Now,
so
hell yeah.
if I got a copy of this, or actually if I got the original photo, right, and I wanted to frame it, right, spend a bunch of money, would it be sacrilegious to fill in that guy's bald spot on the bottom right there? It's really, it just kind of really donkeys up the whole
probably-
photograph, man. You
It
know?
blends in with the sand
I
pit.
know. It's like a green screen.
A little
for
Sharpie,
sand.
you know? No.
Who goes to a baseball game without a hat? This is weird.
Well, particularly that guy, he.
Back when men were men and they got
Yeah.
melanomas.
He got skin cancer, you didn't get it.
Yeah.
It's the second most popular bald spot. The most popular bald spot is a picture of the cigar industry. In Ybor City, there's this guy rolling cigars. Unfortunately, he's looking down from the camera, and you see this awful comb over.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the most commonly used picture of Ybor City you'll
I've
ever
seen
see.
it. It's like 4 strands of hair going
Yeah.
up. Yes.
He's like Homer Simpson.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
We should do the history of baldness in Tampa next time.
Next month. What
Next,
year?
that's next one. We'll do it. The receding hairlines of Tampa. Well, that's the barber from the saliva. I mean, that's,
It came off.
I'd shave my head too if I
I
had
smoked
that.
too many cigars and your hair fell out.
Yeah, this is good cigar smoke right here, folks.
Okay, this is Al Lopez Field, which was located. Actually, it's basically underneath where Raymond James Stadium is. When they built Tampa Stadium in the '60s, it was built just to the north, which is where the parking lot is for
Sombrero,
Raymond James.
yeah.
And so, but this was the baseball field named for Al Lopez, our very first Major League Baseball player, who by this time was a Major League manager.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Al Lopez as a kid, and the best thing was when someone hit a foul ball that was back behind the plate. If it went high enough, it would hit the aluminum roof, and it would make just the loudest banging sound because it was
Nice
just,
noise, yeah.
it was like just a giant aluminum can basically that would surround the whole
I don't
thing.
remember that. I remember going to the games. Was it the Tarpons then?
Yeah, Tampa
Yes,
Tarpons.
we would go to the games also early 80s. It was,
Exactly.
It was a good time, yeah.
Yeah, my mom took me out of school so I could go to the last game that was
Nice.
played at Al Lopez Field in I think '87.
My dad would take me
That's a
because
good
he
mom.
was drunk and he needed a driver.
And there's the man, El Senor. So this is when he was a manager for the White Sox. He was a manager for the Cleveland Indians in the early 50s until through 56. Apparently, he was incensed at the management because one of his good players was injured toward the end of the season. And the fans would boo this player because he wasn't playing or wasn't playing up to his abilities. And the management wouldn't come out and say, well, he's injured. That's why he's not playing as well. And so he quit, even though he had won 90 or more games every year for the 5-6 years he coached the Indians. He was the Indians team that he coached, I think it was 55 or 55 team, was the only team up to that point that broke the Yankees' streak of making it to the World Series for 54, thank you.
Nice.
So he's going to be fact-checked. And then after he quit, he picked up with the White Sox, and as a manager of the White Sox, it was the only other time during that Yankees dynasty that the Yankees didn't make it to the World Series. So he took the Indians and the White Sox both to the World Series. Didn't win, but he became a Hall of Famer because of his managerial career, not because of his playing career.
If only he could see the White Sox now.
I was going to say, so the White Sox were good at some point.
And the Indians. Remember how bad they were in the 80s.
He could probably do a better job right now, posthumously.
Yeah.
His ghost could be a better manager, yeah.
The ghost of Al Lopez can come back for the White
Just
Sox.
set an urn in the dugout, like, we're good. Now, do you know if he smokes cigars? Because I always thought he looked like he smells like cigars.
I am certain he smokes.
Yeah.
And actually,
He probably chewed on them.
Yeah.
Nice and slobbery.
Yeah. So after he passed away, his son invited us over to his house and gave us some of his memorabilia. But the funniest thing I remember seeing is he had these hanging planters by his front door, and they're made of catcher's masks.
Oh, nice.
And so, because he was a catcher. And so he used these old masks as the basket for his...
Then Manuel would hit people with
and then
it.
Manuel came over and smacked him in the head.
I'm going to sell those on Etsy.
And then that same picture was used by Lamar Sparkman to create this cartoon. The White Sox trained in Tampa for 1 year. And I believe this is probably the same year because they're saying he's off now to Chicago to go and try and win the American League pennant.
Well, now I want a Senior Lopez shirt.
I know, El Senor.
If they don't have it available, I'm going to
You
make
should
it.
make one.
You have to make it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Tarpons. The 87 was the last season the Tarpons played. They were the minor league team for the White Sox for 1 year in 56 or 57, I forget exactly which, and then going into the Reds for the rest of their time in Tampa. The Reds bailed on Tampa and went to Plant City, and now they're in Arizona.
Ew.
Most people don't stay in Plant City long.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the major leaguers that get sent to Arizona for spring training. You know? It just looks like it sucks.
They came from Cincinnati. It's a lateral move.
I guess.
Anywhere but Ohio.
Yeah. Ohio and Arizona, you just don't want to be at either of those.
Yeah.
And then there's the Reds for 86. And then one of the most famous players to play for the Reds is this guy, this Pete Rose, who is now eligible for the Hall of Fame because he has been
Lifetime
taken
ban.
on
Because he
lifetime
had to
ban in his
die.
life.
Removed.
Yeah,
because
as his life has been
lifetime
removed.
Overed. Yeah.
Yeah, nice loophole.
Yeah. But so apparently, and this is probably shocking to everybody, Pete liked to gamble. And so,
I've seen him at Derby Lane a couple of times.
well, that's the thing. He actually would go to the dog track
Yeah.
after spring training games, or even like in the middle of the game, if he was done playing after the sixth inning, he would just bail. And he would go to the horse track at Tampa Bay Downs, and he would go to the dog track. And so he was a gambler for most of his life. He played for the Tarpons before his rookie season, I think 61. And he, of course, was tremendous. He had 20 triples, about 331 batting average. They made it to the Reds pretty quickly. And then, the Reds, during the Big Red Machine, the 70s dynasty that they had, I mean, it was great that we had that team here for spring training because we could see this incredible team with Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan, all these.
I can relate to Pete, though. 'Cause I actually
The gambling?
I bet the over on 72. So yeah, I made a few bucks.
Johnny has a problem.
Johnny gambles on Russian ping pong at 3 a.m.
It's called insomnia, folks. What do you want? No, I lived in Vegas a couple times, and I saw him a lot out there. He would do these like pop up like meet and greets like at Caesars and different casinos, and it was kind of sad in a way.
Pay for play. We had to pay for his autograph. Right?
Yeah, and
Yeah, you make a couple $1,000 and then you blow it in the
he goes straight. Yeah, he would go like straight to the pits, and you're like, well, there you go, buddy. Yeah. You could have just met him at the pits and have him sign your chip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But he had a lot of charisma. People liked hanging out with him.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
an
seemed like
incredible person. So this is just a few of the, I think, 60 or 70 Major League Baseball players that have come from Tampa. Of course, Dwight Gooden, Hillsborough grad,
Yes.
Belmont Heights grad. Fred McGriff played for West Tampa Little League, and Jefferson High School, Lou Pinella and Tony LaRussa, I think both Jesuit. As did
they're
Tino.
Jesuit, yeah.
And so Tino Martinez has a particular story with the History Center. So Tino was drafted out of UT, and he didn't finish college. And he went on to a really amazing major league career, including playing for the Rays, as did Wade Boggs and Fred McGriff, and then of course Lou Pinella coached the Rays. And he was, after he retired, he was having a conversation with his daughter, who was at Rutgers, and she didn't want to finish college. And he said, well, no, honey, you have to finish. And she said to him, well, you didn't. And he, rather than saying, well, you know, I had a pretty good career, he said, well, you know what, I'm going to finish. And so he went back to UT to get his degree. Well, a professor friend of mine, Bob Kirstein, who's since retired, told me this story, and Tino was in school at that time. And I jokingly said to Bob, I said, well, if you happen to see Tino and he's an internship, let him know that I'm happy to have him be an intern here. Well, he did. And so
How old was he?
Tino, we have 45.
45.
And so
45
Tino was our intern, and we had just received the Lamar Sparkman collection. So Lamar Sparkman was an artist, sports artist for the Tampa Tribune. He created the original Bucks logo, did all kinds of things, and so he passed away. His family gave him stuff, and so we were going to have a sports exhibit. And so now we have Tino as an intern, and so we thought, okay, here's your assignment, Tino.
Just put
Call
him
all
in
your
the
friends,
case. Yeah,
Stand in this
Yeah.
glass
Yeah.
case.
yeah, get all your friends and see what you can get us. And so got an amazing array of stuff. His own Silver Slugger Award he eventually gave to us. And our old CEO, CJ Roberts, loved to comment that of all the interns we ever saw come here, Tina was the only one who drove a Bentley to his internship.
Yeah, my favorite Tino, when I see him, my favorite story. Do you remember when he won the home run derby?
Yes.
In the All-Star game?
Yes.
So I was outside of Atlanta doing a comedy weekend, and I was at a bar before the show started. Well, the way they've always done it, yeah, I know, right? The way they've always done, the broadcast before the actual home run derby, they show the replays of a couple of years before. Yeah. So it's the year after. I know he wins, so I'm sitting with a bunch of these, drunks, and a couple of us are gamblers.
You say more gambling?
Yeah. So I said to the guys, I go, I'll let you guys pick. I'm from Tampa. I'm picking a Tampa guy to win this thing. You pick 3 batters. I'll pick Tino. He's winning it, guaranteed. Put 100 on the bar right now. So I got 5 different guys put 100 up. One guy's I got McGuire, and this other guy. These are picking all these big hitters, and I sat there and I was acting shocked as he won the home run derby. And before they played the real one, I got the hell out of that bar with my $500. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
That was the first time Johnny got stabbed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be the 4th chapter of my book. How I almost died in Atlanta the 5th time. Yeah.
So we obviously have a great history of baseball players, but we have yet to have a Major League Baseball team. And so in the 1980s, late 80s and early 90s, there was this huge effort to bring a baseball team to Tampa. And so we almost had the White Sox, we almost had the Giants, we almost had what became the Marlins. And that reminds me, where's Michelle? Michelle, there you are. Michelle wanted us to show this. You guys haven't seen this.
Oh.
So it's a little racy, but we're all adults here.
Let's do it.
So one of the newest items in the collection that we have is a T-shirt that was devoted to Major League Baseball after we did not receive the Marlins franchise, as we were basically promised. And so these T-shirts were...
What does it say?
It doesn't say anything, does it?
Yeah,
No, it does.
It says
Tampa Bay
salutes
salutes Major League Baseball.
That's beautiful. Very nice. Very nice.
Sour grapes there among some local residents.
I grew up as a baseball fan, and I remember even as a kid, I was pissed off about that.
Well, and the other thing was this competition between Tampa and St. Pete. It was going to be which side's going to get it. There was a Masani membership group. There was an Amoli group.
And that competition is still today.
It's still
going today. Yeah.
Exactly. And then but it's what prompted St. Pete to build the dome before there was a team, and to build a dome, which was the last dome of that era built, and it turned into kind of a bit of a dump.
My dad did the pipe fitting at the Tropicana Field and Amelie Arena. Yeah. So we got a lot of free tickets to Lightning games as a kid.
Nice, very cool. And so that effort did eventually come with the race. Oh, this is one more thing that you could buy. You could put like reservations for season tickets for a team that didn't exist yet. And so that's a great way to show, obviously, interest and show that we're going to have a team. So 27,000 people put their name on the list and put a $50 deposit down to get season tickets. And then that did lead to us getting a team. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays and Vince Namoli, who we didn't know at the time, was basically the second coming of Hugh Culverhouse. And not the best owner.
That's not a good thing.
That's not good, yeah.
And so not the best owner, but he did get the team for us. And Rick Vaughn, I know many of you all kind of assumed that Rick was going to be part of this panel, but there was one of his mentors in baseball passed away on Friday, and so he's in Baltimore for the service. So Rick couldn't be here, but Rick worked for the Rays, Devil Rays, for quite a long time. It's probably to his benefit that he's not here to tell Vince Namoli stories because it could get a little ugly.
Were you at that first game?
I was not at the first game.
I was at that first. Anybody else? Anybody here at that
opening day?
Was that not?
I heard Rick Dodge announce to leadership Tampa and St. Pete at the Trop. That was the first public announcement of the fact that we had a team.
Of the fact that we got a team?
Leadership Tampa.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
That was awesome.
That's really
that was
cool.
a great day. That was
Yeah, that first game, and it started off obviously our major league experience, but the team, again, a lot of parallels between the Rays and the Bucks. Didn't start off so well. And
I remember yelling out, "We're going to sell out every game, and we're going to the World Series." Yeah, that was pretty good.
It happened eventually.
Yeah.
It's like the same as you making a bet on parlay. Always wrong.
Whatever, dude. Alexnikov won my parlay at 4 in the morning.
So this is the first year schedule. We see Wade
Wade
Boggs
Boggs.
and Fred
The
McGriff
legend.
and a bunch of other guys that no one's ever heard of.
So that was our first team?
Yeah, well, remember
That's a solid
there
lineup
were
right there.
more players than that, but yes, that's the best I can muster.
I just mean
for
that's
the
that's
program.
impressive for a first lineup.
And so, two players, both from Tampa, who were tail end of their career, to be generous.
Yeah.
But they were here, basically because it was a great way to introduce baseball to Tampa.
Absolutely.
Oh, go right ahead.
Steve Garvey from Tampa.
Steve Garvey's from Tampa. Lots and lots of players. But yeah, Steve Garvey's one of them. Played for the Angels, I think. Dodgers.
Are we going to cover any Wade Boggs legends?
Well, we have Wade Boggs right here.
Okay, good. Good.
So what Wade Boggs legend would you like to cover? Which one?
Do you want to take this, John?
His secret to playing well is that he ate a rotisserie chicken before every single game. Yeah.
Every single game.
Every
And there
single
was
game.
the,
he ate
Chicken Man.
entire rotisserie chicken.
The flight from Philadelphia to LA where he drank 60 beers.
Anywhere between 50 and 70.
And
No
then
one
went for
knows exactly.
Yeah. And they went like 2 for 3.
Yeah, the very next game. 2 for 3 the next game.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, literally consumed at least 50 beers on a flight, a cross-country flight. But again, he will say it may have been closer to 70.
He's just such a legend.
Yeah.
The stories go on, but just him and himself. I've been lucky enough to hang out and meet him a few times, and there's certain people that have that aura about them. That's you're among like a legend when you're in the same room with. I was at a Plant football game,
He
and
went to Plant High.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there was something, when you're in a haunted house and you feel something looking at you, but there was something I go, what is over here? And it was funny because I look and Brad Culpepper is sitting there, and I go, oh, but right on the other side of him is Wade Boggs. And I go, get out of the way,
Yeah, really got
Culpepper.
like,
What are we
I
doing?
want to see Wade.
Eating
Yeah.
a rotisserie chicken like an apple.
Oh my God, yeah, but
Fighting into it.
and I remember I wanted to talk to him then, but I was like, leave him alone. It's like to me he's more intimidating than Warren Sapp, and he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Just but he's just such a figure, and that's why I'm wearing his jersey right now. I love him. Yeah.
Well, he had his 3,000th hit as a Ray. It was a home run. I was actually at that game.
I wasn't.
And so he hit it to, I think, right field, and I was in left field. So, almost. And then Lou, sweet Lou Piniella, Tampa guy, unfortunately did not do well in his stint as manager of the Rays.
He's the best manager of getting kicked out of games.
Yes.
The best.
He has a temper.
Screaming.
Yeah.
He has a temper, but he
I love
was
it.
a fantastic manager. So we talked about gambling unintentionally, but this is my stint of gambling. So it's faded, but this is a ticket stub from the Bellagio from 2006. My only time gambling. I'm not a gambler. I don't like gambling. I'm like these degenerates here.
Oh, loosen up.
But I I went to a museum conference in Phoenix with a coworker at the time. And so he said, well, we're going to Phoenix. Why don't we just go to Las Vegas on the way? And so we were in Las Vegas for literally 23 hours. And I put a bet down on the Rays. It was their playing, so this is 2006,
$10.
when they were still bad.
$10.
And it was $10, and so it was against the Yankees. In the first inning, the Rays gave up 9 runs. and I bet on the Rays to win.
That's awesome.
And so I lost my money, and I lost any interest in gambling after that. So, so the guy Travis, he had his tickets up because he did the same thing, and he cut out the box score from the game, and he framed that and gave it to me as a memento of how bad the Rays were. But we didn't know at the time. Maybe Johnny B knew at the time because he apparently sees in the future. But they were going to be good. And so in 2008, everything turned around.
I would have bet them live when they were down 9-0 because that's got to be like plus $9 million at that point right there.
Yeah, my wife actually got me this historical shirt from 2008 the other day at a thrift store. She found it
Fantastic.
for
Yeah.
$2.
Oh, cool. Someone died in that.
Yeah, someone got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that World Series, my second wife was from Pennsylvania. Her whole family Phillies fans, and
Yuck.
she ended up taking them to the World Series in Phillies jersey, and left my son and I at home. We got divorced after that, so yeah, it didn't work out very
Good decision.
well. Yeah,
Good decision.
That's a mistake.
I didn't like it. I didn't know, I was just happy to have a girl talk to me,
He was young,
honestly.
he was impressionable.
My present wife, every day I go, what are you doing here? You're attractive with a good job. You should do better. Yeah.
But this is actually Sports Illustrated during that season when everything was bizarro in baseball. And it really was, they really came out of nowhere. Even though if you follow the team, you could see that Joe Madden as the manager, the new front office, the new ownership, had really put together a really good team. And they almost won, but didn't. But it was still an amazing season in 2000.
Since then, I mean, they've had one of the best farm systems in the entire league.
Yeah.
It really did change the culture.
It changed the culture.
It really changed it.
And it's stuck for a long time. And Cash has done a really good job of really.
Yeah.
Statistically doing better than Madden at this point,
Yeah.
But I remember that 2008 being magical because being a Tampa Bay, lifelong Tampa Bay resident and fan of all sports, we've always just been known as like this, this doormat is a great way of saying it. I was thinking way worse words, but that was good. But to be a winner, and I know when the Bucks turned it around a couple of different times and you changed that culture, it's a prideful thing for us Tampanians, to go, you know what, screw you guys, we're not losers, we're really good. And they changed that around in 2008. And it took a few years for people to they would still say, the Rays, and then you go, yeah, well, watch us, sweep you, and then say the Rays, So, and I think even now with the team we have now, there's a lot of AAA players, but they fight every single game, and they always play above their means, and I love that about the culture here now. It's awesome.
Yeah, even worse, like you mentioned the Bucks, because the Bucks had some of these dips even after the first Super Bowl, and they went south pretty poorly, and the same with the Lightning. 2004, they win. They had the strikes
and all the
season,
talking
and
heads
everything
still
falls
talk
apart.
trash on TV.
Well, the Bucks had those hideous jerseys. They deserved it for a little bit.
The XFL jerseys.
Yeah, those were bad.
The digital clock.
Yeah.
And there you go. There's your horrible Phillies.
It is funny that with the Rays, when we were the Devil Rays, I remember people saying how hideous the uniforms were, and now
people love them.
I don't know how I didn't love them so much.
Yeah.
Now the purple, that's a whole different thing. But
You're talking about the green.
the green and the green stripe.
The
one.
purple's a bit much.
Yeah, but just the old school Devil Rays now, when they wear it, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's like the Bucks wearing the orange. It's like we hated it, now it's like more. So you got to be an old head.
Winning changes that too.
It's true. Yeah, they can wear pajamas if they win. I don't care.
And then this is the last shot we have. And this is the 2020, the COVID World Series, and that's when, as a sports fan in Tampa, you just lost your mind because Lightning, Bucks, Rays. But the odd thing is the two sports where you can have where you can have a home game for your team, hockey and baseball. We didn't have home games because they were played in a bubble.
Yeah.
And then the one sport where you hardly ever guarantee or can ever be guaranteed to have a home game is in football, and we had a home game, but no one could go because of COVID.
Well, the Rays did the COVID thing where you could buy
the cutouts.
You could buy a cutout of yourself in the seat.
Exactly.
During COVID, I had a buddy that had a lot of money in it.
Our comedian friend, Ali.
He bought an entire row of him doing different poses.
Yeah.
Entire row of cutouts of him.
He made a bunch of money on YouTube. It wasn't a row. It was a section.
He bought a whole section.
It was like 80 seats, and it was all different pictures of him. Like, this guy he made money on YouTube, and he's like, I'm like, what are you spending money on? He goes, I bought a sword. I'm like, oh, you can stop. All right.
Face cutouts.
But it was funny because you would watch the games, and I go, there's Ali's section. Look
Yeah,
at
you
him.
can see it on TV because they would show it on every game.
Yeah.
You're like, look at this idiot.
Yeah, you would hear like Dwayne Stats like, that section looks oddly familiar. Yeah. So good.
Yep.
I want that kind of money. You know, it's good. Yeah.
And that's all for pictures. So that's all for our program. Thank
Very
you
nice.
so
Great
much.
job. Great job. Love it.
If anybody has any questions, they can make up some answers, and we can see if we're.
Oh yeah, I'm very good at faking real
Where are the
answers.
Rays going to find a new home?
Where do I want it to happen?
Where do you
Yeah,
want it to happen?
I want St. Pete still.
He lives there. Yeah.
I've been to Tampa. Not exactly fun at the Single A ballpark, and they're turning out about half the average attendance of last year. So yeah, I think it's gonna be the Trop forever. Honestly.
Just nowhere outdoors. Has to be another
Yeah,
dome.
gotta be
It
indoors.
is too
Gotta have
hot.
AC.
Since the Rays came into existence, I've always kind of clamored for the fairgrounds, that area there. I've always been a Hillsborough County guy. I still live in Brandon area now, but I just like the location because you have all those interstates kind of converging. You could get Orlando in easy. You can get people from north and south and everything. And I think you're drawing from a bigger audience. Also, when you look at marketing now with the Hard Rock being built up the way it is, you build a retractable roof stadium there, let the Hard Rock build a walkover to the stadium. Now you got those gambling dollars involved. And if you know anything about the gambling
They won't
industry,
even do it with the fairgrounds.
it's big money.
Bro, run for mayor.
I know Jane Castor. I beat her in a macaroni and cheese cook-off a couple of years ago, so she's true story. And
She
she's
doesn't look like she can cook.
well, she knew I was going to win when she saw me, but yeah, I have a great picture. I should have brought it of me eating her macaroni and cheese with the ladle, but it was a great competition. She knew she was out of it, but no, I like that area just for the logistics of it. I mean, I would like them to exist anywhere successfully to where everybody can enjoy them and them thrive. And
Gotta get more Tampa people out to the games.
well, it's outside right now, and Steinbrenner Field is
There's
a
always
great
an excuse
field.
for Tampa people to not come to games.
This guy's such a hater. But
Hey, they're selling out.
They are not.
Everyone's pre-dating.
They are not selling out. They are
Except
giving
for
away
3 days.
3,000 tickets a game.
as a sweaty fat American, I would like indoors again would
Yes,
be great.
indoors.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime I would see the national media, poo-poo on the Trop, I would be like, have you been inside of it? It's 72 degrees.
Yeah.
Also, if there's a thunderstorm, there's no rain delays.
It looks
we
like
can
shit
hear
from the outside.
Yeah, we can hear the lightning outside, and I'm like, it sounds horrible out there, but I'm fine. Yeah, it's great. So, as a lifelong Floridian, I think we would like to have July games inside, and also no rain delays would be perfect.
Me
Yeah.
and Matt are gonna go to the Trop tomorrow. We're gonna get a couple of big tarps from Walmart, and we're gonna just cover that thing back up.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be fine.
That's
Yeah.
poor. That was poor planning to just make it fabric.
Yeah.
That's so stupid.
It lasted 20 years.
What if the roof was a parachute? It's gonna be bad.
That's how redneck we are as Floridians. Remember when they said it's going to take $30 million to replace the roof? Everybody and their mama was like, "Can we just put some Ziploc bags up there? What are we doing?" Like I built a tent in 5 minutes at Florida State Park. I don't know what we're doing. Yeah, so it's mind-boggling to think that. Yeah, that they didn't kind of plan for a hurricane thing, and also that they built it the way they did. But I'll never talk bad about the Trop. Many great years. And
So much
and
fun at the Trop. Yeah.
I love it.
We've gone to opening day several times.
Yeah, I mean, people can hate on it. Is it a big, beautiful thing? I mean, it's not, Colorado's field, but it's.
It's better than Oakland.
Well, you have to go to Oakland. Yeah, but yeah, I'd rather get mugged in St. Pete. Am I right? But yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Question.
This history that you gave us, why has attendance been so bad?
Because people don't really like baseball. It's a lie.
It's because everybody's from somewhere else.
And it's because the Bucks and Lightning are like champions over and over again.
So the question is, why has the attendance been so bad at the Trop? And I think there are a zillion reasons. I mean, if you had it at, say, the fairgrounds, or if you even and you had it in Tampa in general, you do have a area where you're closer to a dense population, but we don't have population density, and that's the problem. Same with the Marlins. I mean, think about how big South Florida is.
Pinellas County is one of the densest populated.
But it's at the bottom of it. How are you going to get there from Tarpon Springs?
Tampa Bay Area.
They have less than 1 million to draw from.
Fans within a half-hour drive of Major League Baseball, half as many as the next schools.
Yeah.
I think the problem is too, most of the games are
That's a good point.
during the week. It's a 7:05, first pitch. If you want to take your kids to a game and you got to drive from Wesley Chapel, what time are you getting them home to get them to bed?
Right.
So there's a lot of excuses that come with it, but a lot of them
It's a lot of
have
excuses.
real ground to stand on.
Yeah, when you go to like DC or something, you could walk. You could go to a baseball game in the day and then walk to a hockey game at night. It's like
It's really hard to get behind a team where they keep talking about moving.
That too.
That's true.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
It's true.
I mean, that's the number one problem is that the owners suck. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's number one, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the number one problem.
Good owner.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't.
They don't put a lot of money into the team. That's why all the good players end up.
I think they've been winning in spite of the owners for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, question, who had in the 28 years of Rays baseball, who's been your most entertaining player to watch? Not necessarily stats, but who's most entertaining?
Wade
Probably
Boggs.
Carl Crawford, I would say. Yeah.
CC was great. Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I
And he
think
left because we couldn't pay him.
Right.
I mean, in more recent times, Longoria obviously is probably like the darling of the Rays. If you were to pick like a Mount Rushmore, he's your first pick probably. But there's so many players to choose from. Guys like a Carlos Pena or a BJ Upton, and there's so many they all bring something different, to the history of the team. But it's all what you like the most, So.
KK's eyes. It's always been Jeremiah.
Oh my God. I used to be a professional poker dealer, and we were doing a celebrity tournament, and on my table was two of the most beautiful Rays players ever. It was Kevin Kiermaier and Scott Kazmir, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I looked up, they're sitting side by side, they're looking right at me, and I went, guys, I'm turning gay. I don't know how long I can do this with you, And they just started laughing. They go, you should be a comedian. I go, it's funny you should say that, Because I'll be at the Improv tonight at 8 o'clock. Yeah, so.
Longoria and Kiermaier, that's what got my wife into baseball. She was like, I don't like this. And then I brought her, and she was like, I like this.
Yeah, the first time I felt like I was actually doing something in entertainment, I was hosting nighttime radio on 102.5 for 12 years. I just finally got days in January, so I'm a real boy now. But I remember talking with my co-host, and this is 2012, 2013, and I remember saying, I wonder if anybody even listens at night, And about an hour later, I get tagged in a tweet from Evan Longoria that says, "Big Johnny B fan. I listen on the way home every night." And I almost passed out. I almost did. And then I looked, and he was
swooning.
He was following me on Twitter, and he only follows 200 people. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, is somebody pranking me? This isn't really him. Somebody hacked his account. So a buddy of mine that worked at 620, the next day, I told him, and the next day he goes, yeah, we were in the scrum. And I said, Johnny B says hi. And he goes, oh, I love that guy. And I was like, it's confirmed. All right, I could die tomorrow. Everything's fine. So. Yes.
I'm excited about his retirement as a Tampa Bay Area.
He's so good. Yeah.
Next week?
Yeah.
I always said he better sign for a day and retire as a Ray. And
I'm very happy about it.
Yeah. I love him. I almost wore his jersey tonight, but I want Wade Boggs. It's a toss-up. Those are my two favorite Rays of all time. So
should we get out of here and drink 70 beers and eat a rotisserie chicken?
Yes.
I'm halfway there already.
Read my mind.
A couple more questions and we can get out of
You
here.
mentioned that McKay way back offered players $100 a day to come and teams to come to Tampa to train. So did that actually? I know we've had history of Pittsburgh and Bradenton, we've got Detroit, out in Lakeland, and all these different teams that played in the Tampa Bay area. Is that what really got all of those teams here to the Tampa Bay area? Or
Yeah, so the first 1913 was that year. That was the first year that the area had teams, and so I think his name was Lou Brown over in St. Pete. Also brought a team in from St. Louis, I think. And so that started their spring training, and then I think by 1915, 1916, there were 4 teams in the area, so they could play each other, and that really kicked off what became the Grapefruit League. World War I intervened, but then after the war, that really picked up, and so like the Senators and a lot of other teams were playing in the area.
That and everything wasn't covered with ice.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is the
I
idea
think
of
the
spring
weather's a
training.
big part of it.
The idea of spring training was that it's like a twofold. So the teams benefit because they can actually train.
Yeah.
But then the cities benefit because they can bring these tourists in.
Right.
Now, it's true, like what I've heard, like when spring training first started, they were actually doing it to get these guys into playing shape because they had like normal lives.
Yeah, they had regular jobs.
And they would gain 10, 15 pounds, up north eating, meat and potatoes, and then they'd have to come get in shape. Now these guys train year round.
Yeah.
So now, the argument now is, do we really need a full
it's
month?
a tryout.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now, because the way they've structured the rosters, they've got these, 55-man rosters, 60-man rosters that they have to then willow down to whatever it was, 22 or 23.
Yeah.
Number
And so that's where
from Montgomery.
Yeah, exactly. When you get to sign the high number, you
It
probably
just
aren't
seems
gonna
like
make it.
it seems like now the starters, they play one inning and they're on the golf course by the 4th inning.
Well, that
every
was like
single day.
Pete Rose
Yeah.
up, at the track,
Yeah.
by the 4th inning.
Either way, anything else, guys?
Any more questions? Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, guys.